1. The disappearance ***. Early on the morning of June 17, 1982, the Sterling family departed from Springfield, Illinois, just before dawn. Their beige 1978 Chevrolet Suburban was packed to the brim with camping gear, notably a bright red Coleman cooler and a used two-person kayak. Provisions, including an impressive quantity of peanut butter sandwiches, were stocked for a week-long journey. Their simple yet eagerly anticipated plan was a summer road trip through the southern states, aiming to explore the picturesque Appalachian Mountains and perhaps reach northern Asheville. This close-knit family consisted of 5 members. At its head was 42-year-old Reverend Ethan Sterling, a recognizable figure in Springfield, known for his deep, baritone voice, incisive sermons, and a remarkable ability to calm even the most restless teenage congregants. His wife, 38-year-old Olivia Sterling, a former schoolteacher, was a quiet woman of unwavering resolve, dedicated to maintaining their home, especially as Ethan's pastoral duties demanded more and more of his time and energy. Their 3 children completed the family portrait. 13-year-old Emma Sterling, already taller than her mother, was the embodiment of curiosity and boldness. 9-year-old Noah Sterling, with glasses that seemed too large for his young face, harbored a special passion for puzzles and insect study. And finally, the youngest, 11-month-old Sophia Sterling, with her chubby cheeks, giggled delightedly at every word from her older sister. The Sterling family was last seen around 10:30 a.m. at a gas station in northern Kentucky near a small community called Oak Haven, with a population barely exceeding 1,000. The 17-year-old attendant working at the gas station clearly remembered the family. He recalled them not only because they paid with exact change, but also due to a touching gesture from the little girl, who gave him a drawing of a bird. The attendant carefully taped this child's drawing behind the cash register, where it remained for several weeks until someone removed it. From that moment on, the Sterlings were never seen again. They never arrived at the campsite they had reserved near Gatlinburg. No calls were made to relatives. Their bank card remained inactive. The family members' bodies were never found. The vehicle also vanished without a trace. For 2 decades, the disappearance of the Sterling family became one of those sad, forgotten mysteries whispered about in small towns and gathering dust in police archives, until the autumn of 2002. 2. The discovery ***. On Thursday, October 3, 2002, the Green River National Forest in Kentucky was enveloped in a gray shroud. The low-hanging sky created a heavy atmosphere, and the rich scent of pine was so dense it felt almost palpable. 61-year-old Walter Hayes, a retired postal worker from Louisville, was engaged in his usual pastime, quietly foraging for mushrooms in the company of his loyal Labrador, Chester. They followed Walter's favorite trail, an unmarked path that ran close to an old, long-abandoned ranger station. Walter wasn't looking for anything out of the ordinary. His goal was simply morel mushrooms and cherished solitude. It was then that Chester suddenly began to bark. At first, Walter assumed his dog might have found a deer. However, the barking didn't stop. Instead, it grew sharper and more desperate. When Walter followed the sound, he found Chester frozen at the base of a massive old elm tree. The dog was growling low at something sticking out of the ground. It resembled a piece of rusty metal. Walter carefully dug a few times, then abruptly stopped. What he saw next caused a sharp clenching in his stomach. It was an Illinois license plate, heavily faded by time, yet still legible. Beneath it, he uncovered part of a broken headlight, brittle from years of exposure, and something else, a fragment of faded plaid fabric. Walter immediately contacted the local Forest Service using his satellite phone. Within 6 hours, the entire area was cordoned off, and by the next morning, Federal Bureau of Investigation agents were already on the scene. 3. The forest crime scene ***. The vehicle, or what remained of it, was discovered in a shallow ravine that had become thickly covered with moss and dirt over the decades. Trees that had grown around it tightly concealed it from any aerial view. It was evident that the car had been in an accident, but the nature of the damage did not suggest a high-speed collision. Rather, it appeared to have been deliberately driven off the road. Inside, investigators found several bones, later confirmed to be human, as well as a rusty child car seat handle, a plastic toy giraffe melted and deformed by years of sun and moisture, 2 rosaries, and a Polaroid photograph of Emma and Noah tucked inside a deformed leather Bible. What was particularly strange was that the rear seat was entirely missing. The same applied to all the windows and doors. Whoever left the vehicle there had clearly disassembled it on purpose. But why then leave the bones? The bones found were incomplete, representing only partial remains. Forensic analysis confirmed that they did not constitute a full skeleton. It was impossible to determine how many people had died in that car, or even how it happened. Even more chilling was the information from the Rangers. The trail Walter Hayes had been on did not exist in 1982. It had only been established in 1998 when fire crews needed access to the southern edge of the forest. This meant the vehicle had likely been moved there after the family's disappearance. 4. Unanswered questions, ***. When the press learned of the discovery, the story instantly spread, turning a long-forgotten cold case into breaking news. Headlines screamed, "Sterling family car found in remote forest. Bones in forest reveal 20-year mystery. Forest of secrets." And the most unsettling question, where is the rest of the Sterling family? Reporters flooded Springfield. They meticulously examined Reverend Ethan's old sermons, interviewed Olivia's surviving cousins, and contacted Emma's former classmates, who were by then in their 30s. Some remembered the family fondly, while others barely recalled them. A few witnesses mentioned that Ethan had been extremely agitated in the weeks leading up to the trip, as if he sensed something was wrong. One person recounted that the Sterling's church, now under new leadership, had released a box of Ethan's stored belongings. Most of the contents were typical sermon notes, old photographs, and receipts. However, one item stood out, a black leather notebook whose pages were warped by heat. Inside, verses were scrawled, many half-erased or rewritten. But towards the end, in faded pen, someone had written, he said, "Don't turn off at Oak Haven." Said, "It doesn't lead where we think." But the map said otherwise. What if they were right? The last entry was dated June 16, 1982, just one day before their disappearance. 5. Investigation reopens, October 2002 ***. Following the discovery in the Green River National Forest, the Federal Bureau of Investigation reopened the case under the direction of Special Agent Abigail Hayes, an experienced investigator known for her work on unsolved disappearances across Appalachia. She arrived on site within 48 hours, bringing with her a forensic anthropologist, a ballistics expert, and a retired local tracker named Clifford Jenkins. The first task was to create a detailed map of the area to understand how the forest looked in 2002 and how it might have appeared in 1982. This proved challenging, as many old Forest Service maps had been lost during a flood in 1991. Nevertheless, Jenkins, who had worked as a forest ranger in the early 80s, adamantly asserted that no marked trail led to that ravine when the Sterling family disappeared in 1982. He described that part of the forest as dense and untouched, stating, "You'd need a compass and a damn good reason to get in there." But there was something even stranger. According to soil analyses, the Chevrolet Suburban had not been in that location for the entire 20 years. Forensic botanists, after thorough analysis, determined that the moss covering the vehicle had only been growing on it for 4 to 6 years. This fact irrefutably indicated that the car had been moved to this spot significantly later than the family's disappearance. Such a discovery raised a series of troubling questions. Where had the vehicle been for the first 15 years after the Sterlings vanished? And who, and more importantly, why, had moved it? 6. A new witness emerges ***. 3 weeks after the story broke in the press, an anonymous letter arrived at the FBI field office in Louisville. It was handwritten, and shaky, and signed handwriting, and it carried a faint scent of smoke. The message read, "I saw that girl, the one in the photo. It was summer of '88. I remember because the river was high then. She was older than the picture, but her eyes were the same. I swear to God. I saw her near Powell Creek Bridge. She was with 2 men. One limped. The other didn't speak. She looked scared. I told a patrolman then. He said I was drunk. I wasn't. I remember. There was no return address, only a postmark from a small town called Harmony Creek, located approximately 40 miles west of the forest." Agent Hayes and her team continued their investigation. Harmony Creek turned out to be a tiny community, barely numbering 300 residents. Agents conducted quiet inquiries, and an old bartender named Brenda Carter, who had worked at a now-defunct establishment called Hank's, confirmed something strange. "I remember that girl," she said. "Summer of '88. Yeah, she came in with 2 men, the quiet ones. She didn't drink, just sat real stiff. I thought maybe she was a runaway. Told Hank we should call someone. But we didn't. Who would have believed us?" Brenda described the girl as African American, around 19 or 20 years old, wearing a denim jacket and jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exhausted, and when Brenda brought her a glass of water, the girl whispered, "Please tell my dad I'm alive." But when Brenda looked up again, the girl was gone. The men quickly led her away. Brenda never saw her again. 7. The Bible and the Map ***. In the lab, the Bible discovered in the car revealed more information than initially expected. In the lining of the back cover, agents found a folded, water-stained map. It was hand-drawn in pencil, with faded markings, representing not a road map, but a forest map, with unmarked trails, X's, and circles. On the back, the phrase, "Don't follow the signs," was repeated 3 times. One X on the map eerily coincided with the location where the car was found. Another was situated deeper in the forest, closer to an old fire tower on Bear Ridge, a long-abandoned spot. Agent Hayes ordered a drone flyover of this sector, followed by a ground search team. What they found next only deepened the mystery. At the second marked X, buried under a layer of leaves and decaying wood, was a metal lunchbox. Inside, they discovered a torn page from Olivia's school diary, written in the same handwriting as her teaching days, a photograph of 9-year-old Noah Sterling standing by a lake, his face half erased by water damage, and a scrap of blood-stained fabric marked 1983 from an Asheville hospital under the alias Devin Ellis. There were no known records of a boy named Devin Ellis in Asheville hospitals that year. Hayes immediately sent the sample for DNA analysis. 8. The tracker's account ***. Clifford Jenkins, the retired forest ranger, returned to the forest one morning in early November without informing anyone of his intention. He had lived near the Green River Forest for most of his life, and something about the area had bothered him for years. He vaguely recalled hearing gunshots deep in the woods one night in mid-June 1982. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it, as people were constantly shooting in the forest. But now, it felt wrong, too close to the timeline of the Sterling's disappearance. He returned to the part of the forest locals called Quiet Eddy. There were no birds, no insects, and the trees were strangely twisted. Even in summer, moss refused to grow. Locals said the place felt as if it were being watched. Jenkins had always dismissed it as superstition, but now he wasn't so sure. That morning, deep in Quiet Eddy, he managed to find something significant. It was a crowbar, almost completely rusted, entwined with vines and stained. He personally delivered it to Agent Hayes. Lab tests confirmed the presence of human blood from at least 2 individuals. But most importantly, the blood was fresh, less than a year old, which was highly unusual for a location and used for decades. 9. Names in the notebook ***. The black notebook found among Ethan's personal effects, the one with the scrawled verses, held far more information than initially thought. Agent Hayes carefully humidified it and scanned the pages with infrared light. Beneath the surface ink, additional entries appeared, messages lightly etched into the paper. Among these entries, she found the following. Jacob said, "The road ends where it begins. Don't trust the ranger. If we disappear, it won't be an accident." This was followed by 5 names, all written and then crossed out: Amos T., Reggie L., Cyrus M., Bernice H., Deputy Caleb _. The last name was smudged. Only one of these names had a local connection, Deputy Caleb Harrison, who served in the Monroe County Sheriff's Department in 1982. He tragically died in a house fire in 1983, the cause of which was never determined. His widow moved shortly thereafter. His files for that year were reportedly lost in a flood. 10. The Lost Transmission, December 2002 ***. In early December, a retired ham radio operator named Samuel Brewster, 78, appeared at the FBI field office in Louisville, holding a cassette tape in a plastic grocery bag. He explained that he had been following the news about the Sterling family case and believed his recording might be related. Brewster had lived in eastern Kentucky his entire life. In 1982, he operated a shortwave relay station for amateur radio enthusiasts. On the night of June 15, 1982, he was scanning local frequencies for atmospheric interference when he picked up a faint, broken, but human signal. He recorded it, but it made no sense at the time. The cassette was digitized and meticulously analyzed. Here is the clean transcript of what could be heard between bursts of static and forest sounds. "Don't know where we are anymore." Ethan said, "Keep going, but there's no road." "Olivia's crying. She said the baby's cold. Something's following us. I swear I saw eyes." Static. We need help. Someone. If anyone hears this, it's not an accident. The signal cut off. The tape was time-stamped 11:42 p.m. Brewster noted that he logged it as emergency interference, but when he tried to contact forest rangers the next morning, he was told there were no missing persons reports from that area. This part troubled Hayes the most. Someone in the park system must have known and chose not to act. 11. Fire Tower Log ***. Agent Hayes requested archival fire tower logs from the Bear Ridge Tower, the closest structure to where the car and lunchbox were found. Although the tower was decommissioned in 1984, some logs had been preserved in a municipal storage facility in Gatlinburg. Most entries were routine: weather conditions, fire risk, animal sightings, with one exception. It was dated June 16, 1982, the morning after the recording. Smoke near South Hollow. Looks like a car fire. Not natural. Saw movement before dawn. Person. Not sure. Notified Ranger Caleb H. He said he'd handle it. Nothing officially logged. The note was signed RB. There was only one fire tower observer with those initials that month, Ronald Baker, now deceased. Hayes began searching for any photographic evidence from the tower. To her shock, she discovered a roll of undeveloped film, logged and forgotten in a fireproof safe. It had remained untouched for 2 decades. The FBI lab developed the film. It contained 3 images. The first was a plume of smoke rising from behind trees in a remote part of the Green River Forest. The timestamp indicated the early morning of June 16, 1982. The second showed the silhouette of a large vehicle, mostly obscured by bushes. It might have been the Suburban. A figure stood alone in a clearing, captured from behind, wearing a long coat or robe, holding something metallic. The image quality was poor, but something about the figure's posture seemed unnatural. Hayes studied this photograph for hours. 12. The Ranger's Cabin ***. Further examination of records from the Monroe County Ranger Station revealed that Ranger Caleb Harrison occupied an autonomous field cabin deep in the forest in June 1982. Officially, it was used for extended wildlife observation, but no such program existed that summer. Satellite imagery from 1990 still showed a structure in that area. By 2002, it had vanished from news surveys, likely collapsed or overgrown. Hayes dispatched a small team, equipped with GPS and machetes, to the area marked on the old maps. It took them 4 days to reach the site. What they discovered was a dilapidated hunting-style cabin, almost entirely consumed by ivy and decay. Inside were metal hooks attached to the ceiling beams, a partially burned mattress with old bloodstains in one corner, a stack of weather-damaged but partially legible audio reels, a child's backpack hidden under the floorboards, marked NS in faded ink, and a Polaroid photograph, almost fused to the wooden floor from years of dampness. The Polaroid depicted 2 children, one clearly African-American, a girl around 10 or 11 with braids, the other a boy, possibly younger. They were not smiling. They sat on the cabin floor, and behind them, a newspaper was pinned up. It was the Louisville Sentinel from June 12, 1982. 13. The newspaper clipping ***. Another strange discovery came from a local historian who had collected unusual newspaper clippings for years. When he saw the story about the reopened Sterling case, he contacted Hayes. Among his collection was a missing person advertisement from June 13, 1982, but not for the Sterling family. The clipping featured a missing 13-year-old boy named Trevor Ziegler, reported missing by his foster family in Louisville after he disappeared during a church trip to Appalachia. Trevor's photograph bore a shocking resemblance to the boy in the Polaroid found in the cabin. No connection between the 2 cases had ever been established. But even stranger, the foster home from which he disappeared was run by a now-defunct organization called the Brotherhood of the New Dawn, which had lost 5 other children between 1977 and 1984, all under non-criminal circumstances. This pattern had never been officially investigated. Hayes noted this in her report, beginning to believe this is not just a family disappearance. Possible pattern over many years. Others involved may be deeper than local jurisdiction. 14. Unanswered questions ***. By early January 2003, Hayes's team had compiled the following disturbing list of unexplained elements. The Sterling car had not been in the ravine for 20 years, only since approximately 1996. Someone had stored the vehicle and then returned it to the forest. The 1982 radio recording might have captured a genuine distress call from a family member. Multiple sightings of Olivia Sterling, 6 years after the disappearance, suggested she might have survived the initial event. The blood from the crowbar found in Quiet Eddie dated to the late 1990s. A rogue ranger's cabin with numerous signs of captivity hidden for decades. A photograph of children who may have never been reported missing or were forgotten, and a map from the Bible leading to areas still not fully explored. The case had transformed from a missing family into something far greater. And then, just as Hayes prepared to return to the forest to explore the third marked location on the map from the Bible, she disappeared. 15. Agent Hayes disappears ***. On January 9, 2003, Special Agent Abigail Hayes was last seen leaving the FBI field office in Louisville around 5:45 p.m. Her service vehicle, a gray 2002 Ford Taurus, exited the underground garage at 5:47 p.m., captured by 2 surveillance cameras. She informed her assistant that she planned to revisit one of the marked locations on the map from the Bible found in the Suburban's glove compartment. However, she did not file an official route report, which later significantly hampered search efforts. When she failed to report in or respond to her pager by 10 p.m., a full alert was issued. Her vehicle was found 3 days later, neatly parked at Blue Finch Trail, a narrow dirt road extending 15 miles into the Green River State Forest. The keys were still in the ignition, and the doors were locked. Inside lay her field notebook, open to a page with the handwritten words, "They were never lost. They were taken." A tape recorder was still running when investigators arrived, but there was no tape inside. Her service weapon lay untouched in the glove compartment, next to an open paper folder labeled Harrison K. Unedited Notes, 1982. However, the folder was empty. There were no signs of a struggle. No tracks were found around the vehicle, only a strange circle of disturbed pine needles about 20 feet wide. The air faintly smelled of burnt wood, though no fire had been reported. 16. The voice on the tape ***. 3 days after Hayes' disappearance, an anonymous package arrived at the FBI office in Louisville. It contained a single cassette tape, marked in red marker, "Listen Alone." Also in the package was a torn photograph of a girl, possibly Olivia Sterling, looking directly at the camera, with what appeared to be dried blood on her collar, and a small stack of black and white Polaroids, each showing a different forest trail from above, as if taken from the trees. The cassette was immediately sent to the Quantico lab. Audio technicians described what they found as a distorted but unmistakably human voice. On the recording, a female voice, hoarse and urgent, stated, "This is Agent Abigail Hayes. If anyone finds this, I'm not alone here. I followed the trail from the Bible. The third mark. It's not a place, it's a name. I think it's..." Suddenly, the recording cut to distortion, rustling, and muffled screams. "Oh God, something's here. It's watching me. It knows who I am." Silence followed. Then a male voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." The recording ended with a long, high-pitched tone that damaged 2 lab speakers. 17. A name resurfaces, Elijah Boone ***. In her notes, recovered from the car, Agent Hayes had repeatedly circled one name, Elijah Boone. Boone had appeared in the original 1982 case as a park volunteer who helped set trail markers in the Green River Forest. He had disappeared just 3 days before the Sterling family vanished. His disappearance was then ruled a suicide. His car was found near a quarry, and a note was left in the glove compartment. However, the note was never authenticated. Boone was also a member of a now-defunct group called Children of the Flame, a fringe religious collective that operated on private land north of the Green River Forest. The group had been investigated twice in the late 1970s after children went missing from foster care systems, but nothing was ever proven. Boone's 1982 personal file contained a hand-drawn map, marked in faint red pencil, Garden of Restraint. Entrance via hollow number 3. Hayes had marked this hollow on her own map, the very one she was following the night she disappeared. 18. Hollow number 3 ***. FBI search teams were dispatched to hollow number 3, equipped with drones, dogs, and aerial support. After 2 weeks, they discovered something. It was a series of shallow caves, almost invisible from above, hidden beneath dead fallen branches. One of them had been intentionally sealed with a lattice of brush. Inside, they found a plastic crate filled with rusty shackles, broken shoes, and melted candles. Nearby was a makeshift wooden altar with a burned circle carved into its surface. The remains of several melted cassettes were also found, and an inscription carved into the wall: "You are not forgotten. He remembers you." The cave walls were also covered with names carved into the stone, some of which were known to cold case investigators, but many were not in any public database. One name appeared twice: Olivia Sterling, once in 1982, and again under 1995. 19. The last photograph ***. In mid-February 2003, a hiker named Jeremy Hoff turned in a damaged camera he found wedged between tree roots on a remote trail. It was an old Minolta XG7 covered in mold. Miraculously, one roll of film inside had survived. The photographs were developed under special conditions. Frame 7 showed what appeared to be a makeshift camp deep in the forest, a white tent, a fire pit, laundry strung between trees. Frame 8 showed a man standing with his back to the camera. He was wearing a ranger uniform, though such a uniform had not been in use since the 1980s. On his sleeve was a patch, unrecognized by the Park Service, a circle with a flame inside. Frame 9, the last, was a close-up, hastily taken, slightly tilted. It showed a young woman, perhaps in her early 20s, with braided hair and sunken eyes. She was looking directly into the camera, and her name tag, visible but faded, was red. Oh, Sterling. 20. The investigation stalls ***. By March 2003, the FBI investigation had garnered national media attention. Special Agent Abigail Hayes' disappearance was a shock, and the strange discoveries in the Green River Forest only deepened the mystery. Nevertheless, despite public pressure, the official investigation stalled. Internal memos leaked to several reporters suggested the case was quietly being shelved. A high-ranking FBI official ordered agents to cease further searches in Hollow No. 3. Many field agents believed the reason was simple but disturbing. Some names carved into the cave walls, including Olivia Sterling, were linked to influential political families and possibly covert operations that no agency wanted to expose. ***, Benjamin Price, investigative journalist. Enters ***. Benjamin Price, a seasoned reporter for the Kentucky Gazette, refused to let the case die. He had been following the story since Hayes' disappearance. Benjamin enlisted the help of a local guide, Isabel Sullivan, a forest ranger with deep knowledge of Green River State Forest and a passion for uncovering hidden truths. Together, they prepared to venture into Hollow No. 3 in the surrounding woods, armed only with a copy of Hayes' notes, the Polaroids, and a map Benjamin had reconstructed from FBI documents. 22. Into the Woods ***. On April 2, 2003, Price and Sullivan entered the forest at dawn. The air was crisp and filled with birdsong, yet an unshakable tension lingered. Following the faint trails marked on the map, they reached the entrance to Hollow No. 3. The cave mouth was almost entirely obscured by branches and brush, just as the FBI had found it. Inside, they saw the remnants of the altar and the scratched names, now partially covered in moss. Price noticed fresh tracks near the cave entrance, too recent for an abandoned site. 23. The hidden compartment ***. While photographing the cave walls, Sullivan noticed a loose stone at the base of the altar. It shifted easily, revealing a narrow recess carved into the rock. Inside was a small leather pouch containing a faded photograph of a smiling boy in 1980s clothing, unknown to them. A handwritten letter, pinned in fragile, faded ink. To whoever finds this, know that the truth is buried deeper than these woods. We were never meant to be found. But someone must remember. 24. The letter ***. We were here. We were here when they came. They took our children. They took our brothers and sisters. They took our hope. But they did not take our memory. Remember us. Remember what they did. Seek the truth. It waits. The letter bore no signature, yet the handwriting matched Special Agent Abigail Hayes' notes precisely. A chill ran down Benjamin's spine. Hayes had apparently discovered this pouch but, for some reason, had not had the chance to reveal its secret. This discovery reignited the journalist's determination. But as they prepared to leave the cave, the forest around them suddenly and unsettlingly fell silent. Then a low, barely perceptible but palpable hum seemed to vibrate through the trees. They exchanged glances, and unease grew with each passing second. Before they could react, a bright flash of light illuminated the cave entrance. When their eyes adjusted to the darkness, the light was gone, but so was the leather pouch. Back in town, Benjamin reported the incident, but his call was met with skepticism. His FBI contact cryptically warned him, "There are forces at play here that do not want this uncovered. You are digging deeper than just a missing family or a lost agent. This is about power, about secrets deeply rooted in these woods, and about lives that never left them." Benjamin and Isabel, shaken by the inexplicable disappearance of the leather pouch, decided to delve deeper into the forest's dark past. In old newspaper clippings and state archives, they uncovered a disturbing pattern of strange occurrences around Green River State Forest in the late 1970s and early 80s. These included a series of mysterious fires, officially ruled accidental, but repeatedly linked to candles and strange symbols found nearby. There were also several disappearances of local children, unrelated to the Sterling family, all of which were quickly hushed up by local authorities. The documents mentioned a mysterious figure known as the Keeper of the Flame and a cultic group called Children of the Flame. Documents related to Elijah Boone, the volunteer connected to Agent Hayes, revealed increasingly disturbing details. Boone had ties to influential state officials and businessmen. His home, searched after his disappearance, was filled with manuscripts mixing biblical passages, mystical symbols, and strange maps. The records also featured cleaners, shadowy figures tasked with eliminating witnesses or those who knew too much. Benjamin and Isabel tracked down Sam Henderson, an elderly forest ranger who had patrolled the Hollow No. 3 area in 1982. Sam recalled seeing a group of people in strange robes gathered around a bonfire deep in the woods. He described the atmosphere as chilling and tense. He said he heard whispered prayers but felt an overwhelming coldness as he approached, which made him retreat. He had completely avoided the area ever since. Returning to Abigail Hayes's files, Benjamin discovered a series of encrypted messages scrawled in the margins. After consulting a cryptography expert, they deciphered coordinates and instructions pointing to hidden locations related to the Sterling's disappearance. One key location was an abandoned cabin deep in the forest. In late April 2003, Benjamin and Isabel ventured into the dense woods to find the cabin. The structure was dilapidated and almost entirely consumed by moss and decay. Inside, they found broken, dust-covered furniture, torn pieces of children's clothing, a journal with missing pages, and a chalk drawing on the wall resembling a flame surrounded by a circle. In a shadowed corner, they discovered a hidden alcove containing a diary, apparently belonging to a member of the Sterling family. Benjamin carefully opened the fragile diary. The pages were yellowed, some torn, but the handwriting was clear. A woman's cursive, steady yet urgent. It belonged to Olivia Sterling, the mother and matriarch of the vanished family. The entries began like any family journal. Happy memories of the trip, the excitement of adventure, hopes for new beginnings. But as the pages progressed, the tone shifted dramatically. April 5, 1982. The forest here feels alive, almost watching us. Ethan warns me to stay close, but I don't trust him. There's something about this place, something dark, lurking beneath the pines. April 12, 1982. Strange voices at night, chanting in a language I don't understand. Our children are restless. Nightmares steal their sleep. Ethan says, the forest is testing us, but I fear we are intruding on something we cannot control. April 19, 1982. I found marks carved into the trees, symbols like those I saw in Ethan's papers. Tonight, a fire burned just beyond our camp, but no one is there when we look. We are not alone. Olivia's handwriting grew more fragmented and desperate. The last legible entry was dated April 22, 1982. I must hide this diary. If anything happens to us, someone must know what took us. The Keeper of the Flame is real. He watches, he waits. Ethan says, we must be the flame that does not go out. But I fear the darkness is consuming us whole. Beneath this entry, faint smudges, possibly tears or blood, blurred the ink. The rest of the diary was missing. Benjamin and Isabel realized this diary was direct testimony to the family's final days. They planned to follow the coordinates in Hayes's notes, which presumably marked locations where Olivia had left clues, carvings, hidden caches, or messages. Before leaving the cabin, Isabel noticed faint marks in the dust, fresh human footprints leading deeper into the forest. Over the next week, the duo trekked miles through Green River State Forest, following the cryptic directions. They uncovered symbols carved into trees matching those in Olivia's diary, some marked with dates and initials. They also found a small metal box buried beneath a mossy root, containing old family photographs and a single cassette tape. The cassette held a shaky recording of Elijah Boone's voice, speaking in riddles about flames and the cost of knowledge. One evening, camping by a stream, Benjamin and Isabel felt watched. Shadows flickered among the trees. A rustle, then silence. Suddenly, a man appeared, tall, gaunt, with piercing eyes. He introduced himself as Silas, a hermit living on the edge of the forest. Silas warned them, "The forest does not give up its secrets easily. The flame must be protected. Those who try to uncover it risk being consumed. You should leave before the darkness finds you." Despite the warning, Benjamin was more determined than ever. He believed the truth about the Sterling family was tied to the strange cult and powerful figures behind the scenes. Isabel, however, grew increasingly uneasy. The forest seemed to close in. Their paths sometimes shifted, compasses spun inexplicably, and eerie sounds filled the night. Their quest was no longer just a search for a missing family. It was a fight for survival. On the morning of April 30th, after days of searching and near exhaustion, Benjamin and Isabel found a clearing hidden by dense undergrowth. In its center stood a weathered stone altar, engraved with a flame and a circle, the same symbol seen in the cabin. Around it lay dozens of small items, tokens, trinkets, and personal effects, some belonging to the Sterling family. Among them was a small, finely carved wooden box. Inside the box lay a letter addressed to the seeker. "If you have found this, you are closer than anyone before you. The flame burns within us all, but some truths must remain hidden for a time. Beware the shadows that guard the flame." Benjamin and Isabel sat by a fire in a hidden clearing, staring at the letter and the scattered personal effects. A sense of being close to revelation unsettlingly mingled with fear. The phrase, "shadows that guard the flame," felt like a direct warning. But what exactly were they hiding? They knew this investigation went far deeper than a simple missing persons case. It involved forces far darker and more powerful than they could have imagined. Returning to the cassette tape, they listened intently to Elijah Boone's cryptic message. His voice trembled, as if he feared being overheard. "The flame is both a gift and a curse. It burns to reveal truth, but it also consumes the soul. We were chosen, but at a price. The forest is not merely trees. It is a veil between worlds." These words shed light on the cult, the rituals, and the silence surrounding the disappearances. That night, as shadows deepened, Silas quietly appeared at their camp. This time, he came not just to warn, but to help. He confessed he had once been part of the Children of the Flame, but had fled when he saw the true cost, the disappearances, the violence, and the terror. Silas explained that the forest was a ritual site where those deemed unworthy or too curious vanished without a trace. To escape, Benjamin and Isabel would have to evade traps and elude the shadowy guardians of the secret. As they prepared to leave, dark figures, cloaked in black, emerged from the trees, the cleaners, the cult's enforcers of secrecy. A desperate chase ensued through winding, shadowed trails, the forest alive with whispers and danger. Benjamin and Isabel were nearly trapped, but Silas's quick thinking and bravery diverted their pursuers, allowing the three to escape. In a brief moment of respite, Benjamin noticed a symbol carved into the ground. The same flame surrounded by a circle he had seen in Olivia's diary and on the altar. Using Olivia's notebook, he deciphered an ancient message: "When the flame flickers, the past reveals itself. Trust the light within, and the path will open." Gathering all the evidence, they understood that the truth lay not in a place or a person, but in acceptance and recognition. The flame was both a literal and metaphorical beacon. Safely out of the forest, Benjamin and Isabel delivered their findings to the authorities. The Sterling family's story was finally told, a horrifying but necessary one. The Children of the Flame cult was exposed, its members arrested or scattered, and the Green River State Forest was protected and studied. Though justice was served, shadows remained in Benjamin's and Isabel's eyes, remnants of what they had faced. Months later, Benjamin received an anonymous letter. No signature, just the flame symbol. Inside was a photograph. A living fire, burning deep in the forest, flickering and alive. A flame that would never go out. The Sterling family's story lived on in the hearts of those who sought the truth. And the flame, a symbol of both hope and danger, continued to burn in the dark woods of Green River State. After the case closed, Benjamin often stared into the night sky, haunted by memories he couldn't shake. The weight of the truth brought no relief. It left scars deeper than he had expected. He grappled with guilt. What if he had missed a sign? Could he have saved the Sterling family? His nights were restless, filled with fragmented dreams of forest shadows and flickering flames. In quiet moments, he found solace in writing, piecing the story together, trying to understand the fragile line between belief and reality. Isabel, too, was forever changed. Her scientific mind struggled to reconcile what they had discovered with reason. She felt a mix of anger and sadness. Anger at the cult that had destroyed lives. Sadness for the innocent victims. Her relationships became strained. The world seemed dull after such darkness. But she vowed to keep digging into the unexplained. The flame had ignited a need for truth in her that she couldn't ignore. Silas's story was perhaps the most complex. His escape from the cult was not just physical. It was a lifelong struggle with his past. He carried shame, but also a quiet strength. Helping Benjamin and Isabel was partly penance, partly a hope that the cycle might end. He disappeared shortly after, leaving only a note. The flame burns within us all. It can warm or burn. Choose wisely. Benjamin received the anonymous letter with the flame photograph weeks later. It felt like a reminder. The story never truly ended. The flame symbol, once a sign of fear, became a beacon of awareness. He placed the photograph on his desk, where it glowed softly in the lamplight. Far away, deep in the Green River State Forest, the flame flickered among the trees. The forest whispered stories to those who dared to listen. The narrative of Green River State Forest, woven from threads of profound loss, carefully guarded secrets, and an unyielding, resilient light, continued to bind past and present together. These were stories of lives irrevocably scarred, of innocents who vanished without a trace, and of the deep sorrow that remained in the hearts of those who remembered them. Simultaneously, they spoke of meticulously hidden truths, of conspiracies rooted in the most influential circles, and of powerful forces striving to keep their deeds in the shadows. Yet, through this darkness, an unextinguished light shone, a light of hope for justice, the resilience of those who dared to seek answers, and the eternal memory of victims whose voices were finally heard. The flame symbol, so central to this tragic saga, never faded. It continued to burn, not only as an ominous sign of the cult, but also as a metaphorical fire of truth, memory, and resistance, refusing to be extinguished despite all attempts to suppress it. And with that flame, despite all the facts uncovered and revelations made, the mystery itself continued to live on. The full scope of what transpired may never be entirely understood, leaving behind a trail of unsolved questions deeply rooted in the ancient forest of Kentucky.